Imagine a world where parents start behaving in a completely different way. They turn against their own children as if something has taken control of their minds. Is it the result of a secret scientific experiment, a mysterious signal, or an unknown force that no one can understand? Let's find out in this shocking and suspense-filled story. The movie begins with a beautiful young woman named Carly, who is calling her boyfriend, Damon. Before she can finish her conversation, her mischievous little brother, Josh, runs into her room and starts teasing her. Carly gets annoyed and immediately chases him around the house while both of them laugh and play. Carly and Josh live with their parents, Brent and Kendall, in a quiet suburban town where life seems peaceful and families appear to be happy. Their housekeeper, son E, and her young daughter, Lisa, also live with them, making the house feel lively and full of people. Like every other morning, the entire family gathers around the breakfast table. During breakfast, Carly tells her parents that she wants Damon to come over that evening so they can spend some time together. However, Brent and Kendall immediately reject the idea because Carly's grandparents are expected to visit that night. They also refuse to let her go out on a date with Damon, believing that although she's 19 years old, she's still too young to have that kind of freedom. The conversation quickly turns into a small argument, leaving Carly frustrated and upset. A little later, Kendall drives Carly to school. Throughout the drive, Carly barely speaks to her mother and spends the entire time staring at her phone instead. Feeling ignored, Kendall quietly realizes that her daughter no longer values the time they spend together. It becomes obvious that the relationship between mother and daughter has slowly grown distant over the years. At school, classes are going on as usual when the classroom phone suddenly rings. The teacher answers it and asks one student to gather their belongings because a parent has arrived to take them home. At first, no one thinks much of it, but only a few minutes later, the phone rings again, and then again. More students are called out of class one after another. Soon, police cars begin arriving outside the school, making everyone nervous. Neither the teachers nor the students have any idea why so many parents are showing up all at once. Carly watches everything in complete confusion, wondering what could possibly be happening. Meanwhile, Damon is taking an important exam at his college. As he looks out the classroom window, he notices dozens of parents gathering outside the campus, even though the exam isn't over yet. The unusual sight immediately catches his attention, but no one seems to know the reason behind it. Back at Carly's school, she and her friend Riley are still joking around, completely unaware of the growing chaos outside. Suddenly, an emergency alarm echoes throughout the entire campus. The students quickly leave their classrooms and head outside, only to discover that almost every student has already been picked up by their parents. The school, which was crowded just minutes earlier, is rapidly becoming empty. As Carly looks around, she notices a frantic woman desperately trying to climb over the school fence to reach her child. Before she can get inside, several police officers stop her and force her back. Within minutes, a large crowd of confused students gathers near the entrance, trying to understand why the police are blocking so many parents. At the same time, Damon finishes his exam, hands in his answer sheet, and walks out of the classroom. But the moment he steps into the hallway, several parents suddenly rush past him and force their way into the classroom. From that very moment, the atmosphere changes completely. An ordinary school day turns into the beginning of a terrifying mystery. No one knows what's causing parents across the city to behave so strangely, and no one realizes that this is only the beginning of a nightmare that will soon spread everywhere. Just then, a mother gently calls out to her young son. Trusting her without a second thought, the little boy happily runs toward the school gate, trying to reach her. His teacher and several police officers immediately try to stop him, warning him to stay back. But the child keeps insisting that he wants to go to his mom. Then, without any warning, his own mother suddenly lashes out at him with her car keys. The shocking incident throws the entire school into chaos. As a few parents manage to force their way inside the campus, terrified students begin running in every direction, desperately trying to escape. The most horrifying part is that they aren't being chased by monsters or zombies. They're running for their lives from the very people who are supposed to protect them, their own parents. Parents across the campus begin attacking children in different ways, while police officers do everything they can to protect as many students as possible and safely evacuate them. Meanwhile, Carly and Riley keep running through the confusion. Luckily, Carly's parents never arrive at the school, giving the two girls a chance to escape before things become even worse. At the same time, Damon finishes his exam and heads home. As soon as he walks inside, he notices his father sitting silently in a chair while the entire house is strangely messy, as if something had happened earlier. Without thinking much about it, Damon starts cleaning up the house. He gathers the trash and takes it outside. While he's outside, he hears a few strange noises somewhere nearby, but he ignores them, assuming they're nothing important, and walks back inside. However, the moment he returns, his father is no longer sitting where he was before. At that exact moment, the television broadcast suddenly cuts out and is replaced by loud static and strange interference, filling the room with an unsettling sound. Before Damon can react, his father suddenly appears behind him. His expression looks completely different, almost as if he isn't in control of himself anymore. A second later, his father grabs a glass bottle, smashes it against a hard surface. Damon is completely stunned. He can't believe the man standing in front of him is his own father. Without hesitation, his father lunges at him. Damon barely manages to defend himself, but during the struggle, his hand is injured. He desperately tries to avoid hurting his father while also fighting to stay alive. In the middle of the fight, his father suddenly falls to the floor, accidentally causes a fatal injury. Damon immediately rushes toward him, hoping to help, but even in his final moments, his father refuses to let him come any closer. Elsewhere, Kendall sits alone inside her car, quietly crying. Memories of Carly keep running through her mind. She remembers how her daughter had slowly become distant, constantly ignoring her despite everything Kendall had done to support and care for her over the years. A short while later, Kendall receives a phone call from her sister, who is about to be admitted to the hospital to give birth. Meanwhile, after escaping from the school, Carly and Riley decide that the safest option is to stay at Riley's house until they can figure out what's happening. The two girls quickly make their way there. As soon as they arrive home, she heads upstairs to her room, while Carly stays downstairs and turns on the television, hoping the news will finally explain the terrifying events unfolding across the city. The news reports reveal that the mysterious outbreak has spread on a massive scale. Similar incidents are being reported everywhere, but authorities still have no idea what's causing parents to suddenly turn against their own children. While Carly remains glued to the news broadcast, Riley quietly walks toward her mother's bedroom to see if she's home, completely unaware that another terrifying encounter may be waiting just beyond the door. Meanwhile, Riley's mother sits alone in her room, quietly holding an old photo of the two of them. Riley walks in and asks, "Mom, why are you sitting here?" But her mother doesn't respond. She notices the entire room is completely trashed, as if something terrible has happened. At the same time, Carly grows increasingly anxious as she watches nonstop news reports on TV. When Riley doesn't come downstairs for a long time, Carly goes upstairs to check on her. But the moment she enters the room, she freezes in shock. Riley has already been seriously hurt during a disturbing incident involving her own mother. Meanwhile, Kendall arrives at the hospital and begins watching the breaking news playing on the television. The report says that scientists suspect the strange outbreak may be connected to a mysterious biological agent or neurotoxin that affects the human brain. According to experts, the neurotoxin appears to disrupt the natural parental instinct to protect and care for children. Instead, it causes severe behavioral changes that make affected parents act aggressively toward their own kids. After hearing this alarming report, Kendall immediately rushes to her sister's room, where she is about to give birth. The movie then shifts to one of its most emotional moments. Kendall's sister finally delivers a healthy baby. Overjoyed, she gently holds her newborn in her arms for the very first time. But seconds later, the monitor in the room suddenly fills with strange static. Almost instantly, the mother's behavior changes in a shocking way. Kendall quickly takes the baby to safety. Kendall safely protects the newborn, while her sister continues behaving in a dangerously unstable manner. Meanwhile, after witnessing her friend's tragic death, Carly immediately runs out of the house. On the way, she sees another horrifying scene. A father has attacked his own son with a baseball bat. The terrifying sight makes Carly realize the crisis is spreading everywhere. Just then, Damon catches up with her. The two decide they must get back home immediately to rescue Carly's younger brother, Josh. He is still alone at the house with their father, and every second counts. At the hospital, Kendall is confused because her husband still isn't answering his phone. A nurse then tells her that her sister has been sedated and has calmed down. For the moment, she is no longer behaving aggressively. The nurse asks Kendall to return the baby to the hospital's newborn nursery. At first, Kendall refuses because she fears for the baby's safety. But after some hesitation, she reluctantly places the newborn in the care of the hospital staff. One of the movie's most unsettling moments comes next. Inside the nursery, several parents stand silently, staring at their own babies. Instead of joy, their faces are filled with a disturbing expression, making it seem as though something has gone terribly wrong. Alarmed by what she has seen, Kendall immediately immediately calls the family's housekeeper, Sunny, and asks if everything is okay at home. Sunny calmly replies that everything is perfectly normal. Even so, Kendall worries that her husband might reach the house before she does. Without wasting another second, she leaves the hospital and heads home as fast as she can. Meanwhile, Carly and Damon have already arrived at the house. When they step inside, they find Sunny mopping the kitchen floor. Surprised to see Carly home during school hours, she asks why she came back so early. She even offers to make Carly something to eat, but Carly ignores the question and immediately asks where Josh is. Sunny tells her that Josh is upstairs in his room. Just then, Carly notices that the mop Sunny is using. The truth quickly becomes clear. Terrified, Carly manages to convince Sunny to leave the house while she rushes upstairs to find Josh. Damon stays behind, trying to ask Sunny what happened, but she refuses to answer and quietly walks away. Upstairs, Carly finally finds her younger brother, Josh. Shaken with fear, realizing they are no longer safe, Carly tells Josh they have to leave the house immediately before their parents return. Meanwhile, Damon waits outside, keeping watch so he can warn Carly if her parents arrive. Moments later, Carly's father, Brent, pulls into the driveway. As soon as he notices Damon, he becomes extremely angry and starts shouting. His loud voice echoes through the house. It is obvious that Brent is no longer acting like himself. Damon repeatedly tries to calm him down and reason with him, but Brent refuses to listen. As the argument continues, young Josh accidentally steps into Brent's view. The moment Brent sees his son, he starts chasing after him. Damon tries to stop him, but Brent forcefully shoves him aside. Now Carly and Josh have no choice but to run. By pure luck, Brent steps on a toy car lying on the floor. He loses his balance and slips, crashing into the kitchen. Taking advantage of the brief distraction, Carly and Josh rush into the basement, lock the door behind them, and hide. Meanwhile, Kendall is still driving home. The streets are filled with panic and chaos. Kendall finally arrives home. The moment she walks inside, she finds Brent lying unconscious on the floor. Shocked, she rushes over and desperately tries to wake him up. But as soon as Brent regains consciousness, something feels completely different. Within moments, Kendall's behavior also begins to change. Neither of them seems like the loving parents they were just hours ago. It's as if they are no longer thinking clearly, and together they suddenly become a serious threat to their own children. Standing outside the basement door, Kendall speaks in a calm and gentle voice, asking Carly and Josh to come outside. She acts as if nothing is wrong. From inside the basement, Carly tearfully apologizes for taking money without asking. Kendall quietly tells her that she doesn't care about the money anymore. All she wants is for the children to come out. But Carly senses that something is terribly wrong. She refuses to open the door and instead begs her parents to leave the house so everyone can stay safe. The moment Brent hears those words, he completely loses his patience. He starts yelling and demanding that the kids open the basement door immediately. When none of their efforts work, Kendall comes up with another idea. She grabs a power drill, hoping to force the basement door open. However, the door is built so well that every attempt fails. Brent decides to retrieve the family's gun. But when he reaches the suitcase where it was stored, he discovers that it is already gone. Suddenly, Kendall lets out a painful scream. Brent rushes over and is stunned by what he finds. That's when he remembers that the suitcase holding the gun was locked with Josh's birthday as the passcode. Ironically, the same curious habit that often got Josh into trouble ends up saving him this time. Meanwhile, Brent treats Kendall's injured hand himself because leaving for the hospital is no longer possible. From inside the basement, Carly and Josh can hear every sound. Carly grows even more worried, knowing her parents are still right outside. Not willing to give up, Brent and Kendall come up with an even more dangerous plan. They decide to send gas through the basement vent, hoping it will force the children to come out. As Kendall pulls the gas line into place, a terrible smell catches her attention. Brent then turns on the gas while Kendall carefully seals every crack and opening around the basement door so nothing can escape. Inside the basement, Carly has no idea what her parents are planning. She cautiously leans toward a tiny hole in the door to see what's happening outside. But the moment she reaches toward the opening, Kendall suddenly strikes at it with a knife. Carly instantly pulls her hand back just in time, avoiding a serious injury. Now Brent and Kendall simply stand outside the basement in complete silence. A strange smile appears on their faces as they patiently wait, convinced that their plan is finally about to work. As time passes, night finally falls. The gas begins taking its toll. Josh is the first to struggle for air, breathing faster with every passing second as his face turns pale. Before long, Carly starts feeling the same effects, finding it harder and harder to breathe. While searching for a way out, Carly notices a small air vent near the ceiling. Realizing it could be their only escape route, she quickly comes up with a plan. Before leaving, she uses a box of matches to create a simple trap. Her idea is that if their parents open the basement door, the matches will ignite, triggering a sudden burst of flames because of the gas that has filled the room. After setting everything in place, Carly and Josh climb into the air vent. Once they're safely inside, they deliberately begin coughing loudly to make it sound like the gas is affecting them even more. Hearing the coughing, Brent assumes the children are becoming too weak to resist. Confident that his plan has worked, the moment Brent opens the basement door, the trap is triggered. The matches ignite, and the gas flashes into flames, sending a powerful burst of fire across the room, then knocked to the ground. A short time later, Kendall regains consciousness. She picks up the hammer and immediately begins searching the house for the children once again. Meanwhile, Carly climbs down from the attic passage, but she accidentally makes a small noise. The sound immediately catches Kendall's attention. She rushes toward Carly, who has no choice but to run. Carly barely manages to reach her bedroom and locks the door behind her, hoping it will buy her a little time. Unfortunately, the door doesn't hold for long. Kendall forces her way inside. With no other option, Carly bites Kendall's injured arm to create an opportunity to escape. At that very moment, Damon regains consciousness and rushes in to help. Working together, he and Carly manage to overpower Kendall and lock her inside a bedroom closet. For a brief moment, everything becomes strangely quiet, making it seem as though the nightmare might finally be over. But the silence doesn't last. Without warning, another confrontation breaks out. Damon is seriously injured during the struggle. Josh rushes in, shouting for help, but there is little he can do. Knowing they can't stay any longer, Carly grabs Josh, and the two escape through the house as quickly as they can. Just then, Brent appears once again. Now both parents are closing in on the children, leaving them with almost nowhere to run. At that exact moment, someone arrives at the front door. It turns out to be Craig's father. Without wasting a second, he steps in and confronts Brent, giving Carly and Josh a chance to get away. The house quickly falls into complete chaos. Everyone is confused, and no one seems to understand what is happening anymore. The strange outbreak has pushed everyone into acting in ways they normally never would. Moments later, Damon manages to make his way back. In one final effort, he joins the others, and together they finally bring Carly's parents under control. They secure both Brent and Kendall with ropes, bringing the terrifying ordeal to an end. And with that, the story comes to a close.